So for a while, there's been a conversation of Peter needing to be stronger, going all the way back to Hellgate. And at the time, it was more so about him being prepared for an insane fight. But more recently, Peter's found another reason, and I'd argue that it's just as important. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so this gets going just after the events of Death Spiral, when Torment came through with the unsolicited pruning of multiple family trees. And now with Death Spiral having come and gone, we still have some elements of this story lingering around, aside from what we were shown in Death Spiral body count, when we got both Torment's origin and a bit of a teaser for who's coming next now that he's gone. And we'll get into what's coming back here in a moment. But after Death Spiral, we found Peter in a place where he was finally able to take a moment and catch his breath. With so many things happening in his life back to back to back, like 8 deaths of Spider-Man, Hellgate, which sent him into space for months with the Guardians, only for Peter to have to come back and deal with the issues caused by Norman Osborn stepping in as Spider-Man while Peter was gone, which is one of, if not the least problematic thing on this list, because much higher than that you have Ben Reilly, who posed as Peter while he was gone, and basically started tearing his life apart. And then of course again you had Death Spiral, which kicked off from Carnage learning Peter's identity from Eddie, only to then DM it to a killer. But for Peter, when he came back, this was him initially finding out that MJ was the all-new Venom. So that was a lot for him to deal with too, on top of him discovering that he has a cousin. And that's barely going into Peter's personal life and all the people who believe that he's ghosted them for weeks, months even. So yeah, to say the least, he needed a moment. But of course, because this is Peter Parker we're talking about here, that moment was interrupted by Doctor Strange. Because Peter's life be like, we interrupt this problem to bring you another problem that will be interrupted by another problem. But at the time, Strange came to Peter, because during the 8 deaths of Spider-Man, when Peter was battling Sirius, who was taking Peter back and forth throughout time, Peter came up with a Bill and Ted maneuver that involved his future self showing up at the right place at the right time in order to catch Sirius off guard, which is what we're now getting to see later on down the line. And I like how this wasn't something that was just thrown away, but instead it came right back in the next series. And on top of that, we even see the return of the device that Peter made, where he placed a spell inside so his future self would know where to go. And now with Peter getting this message, receiving the device, and making his way to the portal, he made sure to give himself hours to handle it. So even in the present as he's making his way, when Peter hears a sudden explosion that he has to attend to, there's still plenty of time for him to make it to that portal. But even with this being future Peter, or present day Peter now, he's a little nervous because he doesn't want to mess it up, which is different from past Peter, who knew it was guaranteed to work because it already happened. So really it's one of those things where current day Peter, he's just nervous because now it's time for him to actually do the thing. But even here when he goes to check out the explosion, just to find that it's Titania and Absorbing Man, none of this is threatening the loop as it is, because it's all what future Peter, who is now present day Peter, had done before showing up. But this mix up with Titania and Absorbing Man is ended pretty quickly. And even though we're not showing a lot of it, we're showing the end result, where Crusher Krill gets tricked into becoming the human Glizzy. Which is some crazy work, because when the authorities get there and Peter leaves, he's just like, oh, just shovel him into a nice bed of sauerkraut. It'll wear off, eventually. But then right after this, Peter gets another call for a stop that he needs to make at the Baxter building to pick up his alien friends, because back in issue 22, when Peter returned to Earth, bringing Wraith, Symbi, and Glitch along with him, the first thing he did was check on Aunt May. But when he went to her apartment and didn't find her there, he quickly started to panic, because at the time he was thinking anything could have happened to May over the couple of months that he was gone. And now this turned into a whole thing with Wraith having to calm Peter down and tell him instead of worrying about a future that might not happen, tell them where to look next, which then took them all back to Peter's apartment, which was packed with all kind of mail, his cell phones flooded with messages. He had a written letter from Ben Reilly that told Peter how Ben knew he wasn't dead because of his clone sense. So he got the bright idea of taking Peter's place for a while. But while doing it, Ben came to the realization that Peter Parker's life is overrated. And like we talked about before, Peter would go on to talk to Aunt May and find out she's alright. But around this time, even though he promised Rayla to get ice cream and go see the city, he was like, we gotta make one more stop to go see Ben, because Peter needed to confront him about ruining his life. But even at this time, with Peter not even knowing everything that Ben did, Peter told him when he's finished cleaning this up, Ben better be somewhere far away. Only for Ben to tell Peter like, hey, if your life fell apart because I didn't answer a couple of calls, maybe you got deeper issues, man. But it was at this time when Peter discovered that Earth was killing Rayla, so he had Glitch take her to the Baxter building, where he told Johnny and Ben this thing is an adult Kylovian female, currently being ravaged by no less than 98 Earth-born microbes, against which she has no defense. And this other thing's an independent fragment of the Clintar symbiotic species, who's faking it for attention. But yeah, that's the lead up to why Peter's gotta come here to pick these guys up. And now the dynamic between them and the Fantastic Four is pretty funny, because Rayla's always had the hots for Peter, and Johnny's jealous. Because, you know, Johnny, he has a thing for everything, really, you know. Yeah, this guy's gotta be stopped. But it even has him like, man, I need to shave the mustache. Only for Ben to put his hand on the shoulder like, hey, that ain't gonna do it, big dog. It ain't the stash. Some guys got it and some don't. But now with Rayleigh being all better and she's telling Peter the things that, all men love to hear. Cause she's like, you smell of salted meat. Also, I am free of disease. Cause Peter was swishing around in that glizzy juice earlier. So he's still got the smell on him. But that's neither here or there. And all this attention, of course, has Johnny a bit salty, because he wishes it was him. But in the here and now, because Peter has somewhere to be, with him having a time loop to close, he asks Rayleigh if her and the others can make it back to his place without him. But Rayleigh tries to remind him, like, hey, you're supposed to take us to the Square of Times. No, but Times Square. But Peter hasn't forgot, he's just got to take care of that loop. But when he leaves, he gets another call for him to head into his job at Rand Enterprises to have an emergency meeting with Dr. Osmani Milton and Astrid. And now this is a follow-up on a bit of something that's been building up in the background for a while, that we last saw during Death Spiral, where as soon as Peter came back, he found out that his childhood friend Brian Naring had ended up getting injured while testing a new fungal strand. And Peter didn't know this happened since he was in space at the time, but during Death Spiral, Astrid told Peter that she was going to be looking into it. So fast forward to now with them calling Peter in and him showing up smelling like hot dog water. He's given the update on the investigation, with Astrid telling Peter just prior to Brian's accident, where he inhaled a face full of genetically engineered spores, someone with Peter's credentials logged in and rewrote 35 lines of code, which ended up causing the critical failure. And right away when Peter hears this, he says to himself like, okay, that was definitely Ben Reilly. Now Astrid doesn't take Peter to be the type of person to intentionally do this, but even still she had to look into it. So she went through every line of code that Peter's written since he's worked there, which is about 15,000, and it took her 3 days. So she's like, her blood is just energy drinks now. But Astrid goes on to tell Peter that she compared the code that was changed to Peter's previous work. And it's funny how in the code there's a note that says BR, Ben Reilly, is better than PP, Peter Parker, and then a wink with the tongue out. So yeah, Ben Reilly just really didn't care. But also I'll say I haven't coded in a while. And even back when I did, it wasn't that great. I made like a Hello World app and that was it. So all my professional coders, let me know in the comments whether these are like those brackets where you can leave a note or if this is what it compiled into. Because the display result part has me thinking, okay, this is what popped out at the end. Because if that's the case, this is extra dirty on Ben's part. Because if Ben Reilly wrote a code that compiled into Ben Reilly is better than Peter Parker, wink smiley face, that's impressive. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. And now, even though we know what happened here, to Astrid, she's like, at best, you have split personalities that code differently, which is unlikely as you barely have one personality. So it's one of two things. Worst best, you are outsourcing the programming and taking credit for it. Unethical, but more likely. Worst, you vibe coded with AI, which makes me puke in my mouth. So now Peter's got one of 3 options, because he can either say, hey, I'm Spider-Man and this was done by my evil clone, Ben Reilly. Or 2, he could go with the lie and say that he was either vibe coding or outsourcing, neither one a great look. Or 3, he could just plead the 5th. So he tells them here the truth is he can't explain the difference in the code. He lets them know that he didn't sabotage the project and that he's sorry that he wasn't here to protect Brian. And now Dr. Osmani Milton is understandably frustrated with this nothing burger of an explanation. But there's really nothing Peter can say here unless he tells them he's Spider-Man or he lies about his previous coding and takes the rap for what Ben Reilly did. But with having nothing else to say here, he gets suspended until the conclusion of the investigation, which very much sucks because Peter liked that job. But now as he continues on his way to the time portal, we see that Peter's being watched, but this doesn't get in the way of Peter rushing to smack Sirius. But instead, along the way, everything that's happening kind of plays in as a reminder for why Peter needs to be stronger. Because he even says here, I'm spiraling actually. My friends think I've abandoned them. My Aunt May barely believes I'm a functioning adult. I probably just lost the best job I've had in a long time because I wasn't strong enough to stop a monster from punching me across the universe or keep my clone from mucking up my life. I know, Peter, that's mucked up. And now I may break time because juggling the shards of my life is a full-time job. I'm an utter failure. And now when Peter's able to catch Sirius with that left, it makes him feel a little better. Because for one, this closes the time loop. So while the nervous jitters of needing to get this right, that's gone. But going into this with Peter starting to point the finger back at himself. And that's not even to say that he should, as if any of this was his fault. But much like what we saw when Norman didn't do the best job as Spider-Man when Peter was gone, Peter's taking on a different perspective, or really going back to the idea of had he been stronger, none of this would have happened. And he's just now getting to a similar place when it comes to Ben Reilly as well. Because sure, in the here and now, Peter's still mad at Ben, very much so, and for good reason. But at the same time, he believes had he been strong enough to take on Hellgate, then his job and his relationships with his friends and Aunt May, all of that wouldn't be falling apart right now, just because he was gone for a little while. So going forward, when we see Peter talking about how he wants to get stronger, it's not only about him literally just being stronger, but it's also about him just trying to have a better life. But nonetheless, Peter catches Sirius right on time, and just like what we saw in 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, he's able to give his past self a bit of encouragement. But now that we're seeing this from the other side, Peter looks back at himself and he's like, man, I remember how this moment felt. I wasn't broken yet, but I was on my way. This moment was a small win after some brutal losses, a glimmer of hope from future me. But even now, future Peter's got to recite the lines that he said in this moment to fully close the loop. But as he does, future Peter or present day Peter, as he says all of this to his past self, things like I have faith in you and hang in there. As this ends, it has him thinking like, man, I'm lying through my teeth. Because when the time loop closes, present day Peter, he lets out everything he wanted to say, which are all the things that he really couldn't tell his past self. Because now he's like, even though you'll successfully close the time loop, you're about to die. And even though you'll eventually win against the Scions of Sidorak and save the world, it's gonna hurt a lot. And just when you get over that, and life looks good, you'll meet Hellgate and lose everything. Your life will fall apart, your friends will hate you, you'll lose your job, and that's where he hears a voice say, excuse me, sir? And when Peter looks up, it's Captain Kintsugi, which is who we saw watching Peter earlier, who also showed up back in issue 8 to help out while Peter was fighting Hellgate. But at the time, since the two of them couldn't have a proper conversation, now he's saying, sorry to bother you, I was on patrol and saw you. Not in a bad way, I'm a good guy. Sorry, a little nervous. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Kintsugi. And now, of course, Peter remembers him. And he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna forget that day anytime soon. Then when Peter asks him why'd he shorten the name, Kintsugi tells him because it was a mouthful. So Peter tells him, I get that. I used to be Arachnoman, savior of queens. And dude's like, really? And Peter's like, no, sorry, I'm just being dumb. Then he tells him like, hey, I'm kind of having a moment here, so if you don't mind. Then Kintsugi tells him like, right, sorry, I just wanted to thank you. But Peter just shuts it right down. He's like, that wasn't me. I don't know what you know, but I haven't been me for a while. And the kid's like, oh no, I know that. Spider-Man told me. The young cool one, not Norman Osborn. He was actually cool too for an old head. Then he goes on saying, Captain America's my hero. Obvious, I know. I spent a long time learning how to use this thing. Trained hard, ate clean, all the things. But honestly, I didn't think I could make a difference. Then Hobgoblin, Roderick Kingsley, attacked my mom. I know you help a lot of people, so it's probably a blur. But she was in big trouble and you saved her. You didn't know her and you saved her. After that, I knew I couldn't not do this. So yeah, it was you. Thanks. Then he's like, so I'm gonna go before I embarrass myself more. But then Peter asks why Kintsugi? What does it mean? And when he tells Peter here, it's like it's something that he really needed to hear, I'd argue. Because he tells him here when something breaks, like pottery, there's like this Japanese art where they use gold to put pieces back together. Makes it stronger than before. And it's a reminder, our flaws, the cracks in life, they make us stronger. Then he's like, I know it's still hard to pronounce, but Peter stops him right there. He's like, no, it's perfect. And when Peter gets up, he's like, man, I was planning to lie here for a few days, feeling sorry for myself, but then I just remembered I got some work to do. So Peter gets ready to spin a web and he's like, see you around. Only to have nothing come out of the web shooter and have Kintsugi back there looking at him like, oh man, this dude's shooting blanks. Never meet your heroes. But now Peter realizes this would have been a cool exit. And Kintsugi's really like, yeah, I was feeling it. And he even goes on to offer Spider-Man a ride on his Vespa. And when he does, it's a nice gesture. But Spider-Man still gives him this look like IKYFL. And Kintsugi's like, man, I'm saving for a sports bike, man, come on. But Peter's just like, nah, I'm gonna hoof it. Just before they give their awkward goodbyes. But now coming out of this, Peter's been given a whole new perspective. Because starting from Hellgate telling him that he needed to be stronger to handle some insane threat, this led to Peter realizing how being stronger could help him be better to the people he cares about. So now after having this conversation with Kintsugi, he's learned that the cracks or all this stuff that he's going through is making him stronger. So now he's able to tell himself, his present self, the real truth, instead of what he felt like was a lie that he told his past self. Because now Peter's able to say, hang in there, Spider-Man. It's all gonna be fine. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone that's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. All right, later.